Hey friends, I happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. We just finished a lovely day of Mother's Day celebrations, orchestrated largely by my 5-year-old daughter. She was the one who who was hosting the event. She was the official host, and there were presents, there were food items that were necessary. There was a whole thing, and it was wonderful. And I hope to all the mothers out there, you had a wonderful day celebrating yourself and the incredible role you play in your family and in the world. It's kind of it's nice. It's a sort of a beautiful opportunity to be able to reflect on that. I think it's funny because I recently was listening to John Vervaeke, and he was kind of bashing um, holidays. He's bashing specifically Valentine's Day as a sort of the ultimate, like the ultimate expression of what you kind of have to follow his argument to understand why he's saying this. And it's actually, he's not wrong, but he's talking about how we have elevated romantic love to a status that it just doesn't, it's completely unrealistic. And it's almost like a kind of emotional pornography that we indulge in when we watch romantic movies or entertain a certain kind of notion of what romantic love is supposed to do for us. And he has doesn't mince words about Valentine's Day when it comes to that. When it comes to a kind of ultimate hallmark expression of what I think he would probably consider at least one of the great symptoms, if not at least partly a cause of Western malaise and the meaning crisis itself, which is what his whole series of episodes is about. But what I sort of couldn't help but think in that moment when he was tearing into Valentine's Day was, well, look, yes, John Vervaeke, you're right. There are all kinds of reasons why a holiday like Valentine's Day is problematic. And that doesn't mean we have to use it that way. If we have a notion of romantic love that is different than the Hallmark version, then we can celebrate that. We've been given a day to celebrate that. And I sort of feel that way about all holidays. It's like, why should we limit ourselves to the most common, the lowest common denominator, generally commercialized version of the holidays that we have? Why don't we claim them as moments of deep celebration and kind of use them to our own ends, put them to work in the way that we wish they were working? If we're celebrating mothers, if we're celebrating fathers, if we're celebrating romantic love, if we're celebrating the earth. I mean, the Earth Day is kind of just like a great day. There's nothing really wrong with Earth Day. But you get my point. Even religious holidays, there's no reason to necessarily carry all the baggage. Let's use them to celebrate the highest expression of spiritual realization that we can in ourselves and our community. And the holiday might just give us some lovely metaphors to think about, some lovely inspiration a lovely access point or starting point for that type, for a celebration that really does mean something to us. So that was evoked as I was, having a wonderful holiday, a wonderful day, a wonderful celebration today. I also was thinking, this is how I think we should use all holidays. Use them to express the highest thing we can express on this topic today, because we're here, because this is what the calendar says it's time to do. Use it. In a weird way, this is a weird analogy, but I use this post the same way. I very often don't know what I'm gonna say on this post. I very often don't. Not too often, but I'd say regularly, I show up and I'm like, I don't have anything to say today. But I haven't made a rule that I have to have something to say. I've made a rule that on every day, I'm going to show up and say something from the highest place I can access. That's what the post is about. That's the practice that I've set for myself. And God knows there are plenty of days when I roll up and I'm like, ugh, another one. I mean, this time I might really be out of ideas. but I never am, because it's not content that I'm responsible for creating. It's not content creation. It's tapping into a space and living from that space, speaking from that space. That's the practice. What comes out might be hogwash, and sometimes it is. But I would actually, like to think, and I actually do believe, most of the time I tap into something, and something comes through that I very often had no idea I was going to say, or very often had no sense that was there, or that was available, until my mouth opened and the words came out. So that's another way we can I'm relating that to the use of holidays, because it's like, just because a holiday is about something, or because a holiday has taken on a certain cultural tone, doesn't mean we can't do whatever we want with it. Doesn't mean we can't take the opportunity for celebration, the opportunity for ceremony, for ritual, and use it, put it to the highest use that we can. So, that's honestly not what I thought I was going to talk about today. I had showed up and been thinking about how, I've got, my daughter has another violin recital in a couple weeks, and I'm going to be playing piano for it. And there's one particular piece, the Bach 2-violin concerto. So it's like a concerto for orchestra and 2 violin solos, kind of intertwined, really cool piece. And it's Bach, and it's pretty fast, or at least the movement we're playing is fast. And I have to practice. I'm having to practice it. So I'm enjoying that, and I have enough time. I've given myself enough time that I think I'm going to be in pretty good shape by the time the recital rolls around. I have a couple more weeks. But I also have been noticing what happens to my system when I play that music, when I play Bach. It's it's like I get smarter. It's like I can feel myself actively getting smarter. It's weird. It's weird. but but it happens, you know, it's super consistent. I sit down, I practice, I internalize the music. I work out fingering. And this is the nice thing about starting early is I work out fingering and then I change the fingering and then I change it back and then I change it to something else and then I change it back and then I change it to something else. I can let myself just because it's, you know, fingering is one of my, it's, I think, something that I'm possibly more obsessive about than most pianists, although I don't know that. I would guess probably most classical pianists are pretty obsessive about fingering. But I really take the time to work it out and to get the best fingering. You know, and there's very often, this is, I've talked about this on another post. There's something that happens when I go, there's a shift that happens. If I keep working with something, a lot of times I have to do a couple different fingerings. I have to try it one way, or I have to do the first thing that I see and then change it to another thing, and then I'm kind of like caught between two, and I don't know which one's better, so I kind of go back and forth until, or I, you know, if usually one shows up as a little bit better, or if it doesn't, then I just decide and I just go with one. I'm saying we're going to do this until I decide otherwise. And that process is kind of like archaeology. It's like I'm trying to find the way to Bach's thinking. And there's almost always a moment when that happens. If I'm doing the work, if I'm reading the piece and I don't really let it go in deep, then it doesn't happen. But if I keep doing that work, very often a moment will happen where I'm like, oh, I get what he's thinking. I see what he's doing. And then I'm no longer, it's not that I'm no longer working on it. It's just that now it's almost like I'm seeing it the way he saw it when he was writing it. And the fingering becomes obvious. I'm like, oh, this is the fingering because this is what he's thinking. And, you know, again, I could be wrong, but I related this to something John Vervaeke said about a Gnostic approach or a Gnostic approach to reading. He was talking about reading philosophers and reading literature, and he would like study someone and be working out their arguments and be figuring out how, you know, he's making sense of them. And then there's a shift that happens where he starts to see the world through the lens of their perspective. And he starts to think like them. And it's almost like this fusing with their mind that can happen across centuries. That's what I feel with music when I do the work. It's like I suddenly feel, oh, that's what Chopin meant. I don't have to think about fingering anymore. Now I'm using my hands the way he used his hands, and I know that I'm doing that. It's weird. Like I would say that I know. I would say that I am now inside Chopin's mind, playing the music, and that's such a cool experience. That was what I wanted to talk about today. That's what I showed up on my mind, and I somehow ended up talking about holidays. So I don't know if these things are related, but they're now in one post for you to decide if there's any sense to that combination. But it's been a wonderful day with a lot of enriching moments and a beautiful celebration. I wish that for you too. Have a great day. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you soon.